My name is Army. I grew up in a city famously known for being haunted, with chilling tales passed down through generations. I'm from Savannah, Georgia, a place where every alley, every old house holds legends of ghosts and supernatural occurrences. But me, I'm a materialist. Completely. I never really believed in anything spiritual, ghosts, or anything that couldn't be explained by science. Not until I witnessed something firsthand that even my staunchly materialistic mind couldn't logically explain. It wasn't a legend. It wasn't a story retold by others. It was the truth. A truth that changed the way I saw the world. Forever. It was a gloomy, suffocatingly humid summer afternoon. The air felt thick, signaling an approaching storm, but its heaviness didn't bring the promise of a relieving downpour. Instead, it was an unsettling stillness. At that time, I was just an innocent 6-year-old child, completely oblivious to the frightening hidden corners of the world. My older sister, Mia, 9 years old, was my entire world. She was my hero, my companion in every game, the keeper of all my childhood secrets. We were playing inside our old but cozy wooden house on the outskirts of Savannah, surrounded by a large garden and ancient oak trees. Our house, though it had seen many owners, was always cleansed and protected by Mom from any bad spirits that Savannah was famous for. I remember it vividly. I was engrossed in playing with our favorite fabric doll, a soft white plush bunny named Bunny. Bunny wasn't just a toy, it was the third member of our team, a friend that both Mia and I held a special affection for. Mia was excitedly playing chase with me. She held Bunny, pretending it was a scary monster coming to get me. The whole house echoed with my high-pitched giggles as I ran away, following the rhythm of her teasing. They were carefree, innocent laughs without a hint of fear. I was giggling, hiding under the old upholstered sofa in the living room. The space underneath was cramped and dark, but it offered a strange sense of safety. Mia pretended to search everywhere, then suddenly ducked down, feigning surprise when she discovered me. I burst out laughing again, quickly crawled out and ran straight to the front door. I slowed down as I got some distance from Mia, still giggling. My laughter echoed in the quiet space of the house until I neared the front door. Right at the threshold, my laughter suddenly died. Everything seemed to freeze. The bright sunlight that usually streamed through the glass panel above the door suddenly darkened, as if a giant shadow had just eclipsed it. A sudden cold sensation washed over me, piercing my delicate young skin, making me shiver. The air around me grew heavy, thick. An eerie silence enveloped the space. Something was blocking my view, blocking the sunlight. Instinctively, as a child, I looked up, and then I saw it. I cannot fully describe the shock of a 6-year-old girl witnessing the creature before her. It wasn't an animal, it wasn't a person, and it certainly wasn't a shadow. To be precise, it was a demon. Its face was only about 50 centimeters from mine. That distance was close enough for me to clearly see its disgusting features, close enough to feel the cold aura emanating from it. Its hand, with long, sharp claws and rough, scaly skin, clung tightly to the wooden doorframe, as if it was squeezing its head out from another dimension. On top of its head were 2 horns, neither too long nor too short, but enough to make its appearance grotesque and terrifying. Its face was deathly pale, a sickening gray-green, but it was also horribly rough and distorted. Deep wrinkles, strange growths, and unexplained scars created a hideous visage that I could never forget. Its eyes, I can't recall their color, only that they were empty, soulless, yet held a terrifying craving. It extended its bright red, long, serpentine tongue, licking the air and poking at the space behind my back. It wasn't looking at me. Its empty eyes and long tongue seemed focused on a point behind me, as if it were lurking, waiting for something or someone. A thought suddenly flashed in my mind from stories my mom used to tell. "Our house is always protected, Army," Mom used to say, her voice full of certainty. "And evil spirits cannot enter unless they are invited." But this creature, it was right at the threshold, just a little bit more and it would step inside. Was it waiting for an invitation? Or was it just secretly lurking? Then just as it had appeared in an instant, it vanished right before my eyes. The giant shadow over the sunlight dissolved. The cold air suddenly receded. Everything returned to normal as if nothing had ever happened. I stood there, stunned. The sensation had been too real, too vivid to be an illusion. I rubbed my eyes repeatedly, pinching myself, trying to believe that I had seen wrong, that it was just a daydream or a trick of a child's mind. But the most terrifying moment, the moment that shattered my entire materialistic worldview, was when I turned around. My sister Mia was standing there a few steps behind me. Her face was also pale and shocked, her eyes wide open, staring straight at me. Identical. Exactly the same horrified expression on my face. She stammered, her voice trembling, almost inaudible. You saw it too, didn't you?" Mia's question hit me like a punch to the gut. Not an illusion, not imagination. We had seen the same thing. We sat down together, huddled on the cold floor, recounting to each other what we had just witnessed. Every single detail. The pale, rough face, the not too long horns, the long, bright red tongue, the way it clung to the door frame, and the way it poked at the space behind me. Everything matched terrifyingly. We didn't know why it came here. What did it want? Why did it appear and disappear so quickly? And most importantly, why was it staring at the space behind my back and Mia's as if searching for something invisible? We never saw that creature again. At least not so clearly. Our parents, when we tried to tell them, patted our heads and said it was just a trick of the imagination, or you two played too many scary games. They laughed, but we knew the truth. And that really remains the most mysterious, the most inexplicable thing for me, even now. That memory still haunts me, reminding me that there are things in this world that cannot be explained by science, cannot be grasped by reason. And sometimes the most terrifying monsters don't need to break down the door. They just need to squeeze through the cracks, lurk right at the threshold, waiting for an invisible invitation. Or worse, they have already found a crack, a weakness, some unconscious invitation. My name is Alex. I lived in Savannah, Georgia throughout my college years. Savannah, well, it's a city breathtakingly beautiful with oak-lined squares, historic homes draped in Spanish moss, and ghost stories passed down through centuries. You can hear legends of Civil War soldiers' spirits or Southern belles still wandering the dim alleys. I was always a skeptic, a true materialist. I never really believed in those wild tales, just viewed them as fairy tales to entertain tourists, until the night everything changed. The night I learned that some shadows truly exist, and sometimes they come from where you least expect them. It was a night in October, raining cats and dogs. Not a sudden summer shower that comes and goes, but a persistent heavy downpour lashing against our apartment windows like 1,000 watery arrows. The wind whistled through the old cracks in the frame, creating eerie sounds that made Savannah's already gloomy atmosphere even more somber. I was dozing off on the old sofa in the living room. I usually stayed up late to study, but that night the rain was too loud, and I was exhausted after a long week of classes. My apartment, shared with my roommate Ben, was on the 3rd floor of an old red brick building in the historic district. Ben was my best friend since high school, a lively, fun-loving guy, always full of energy. Tonight Ben had a date with Sarah, his new girlfriend, so I knew he'd be home late. I'd told him to be careful in the rain, but I wasn't too worried. Ben was a cautious driver. Around midnight, I suddenly woke up to a strange noise. The front door creaked open softly, followed by footsteps. Not ordinary footsteps. They were heavy, distinct splish splash sounds, as if someone was walking with soaking wet feet. The footsteps continued from the hallway into the living room, each step leaving a small trail of water on the dark wooden floor. The room was pitch black, with only a faint light from the street lamp filtering through the rain-lashed window. I lay still, trying to adjust my vision, and then I saw Ben. He was standing in the middle of the living room, soaked from head to toe. Rainwater dripped from his matted brown hair down his gray t-shirt and jeans, forming small puddles at his feet. "Ben," I whispered, my voice thick with sleep. "When did you get back? Why are you so wet?" Ben turned his head, his eyes wide, vacant. His face was pale, his lips blue, and his teeth seemed to chatter uncontrollably. He shivered, his whole body hunched as if he had just been hit by the most terrible cold of his life. I'm so cold, Alex," Ben whispered, his voice hoarse, weak, as if it took all his strength to utter each word. His breath was thin, forming small white puffs in the cold air of the room. I immediately sat up. My sleepiness vanished. Ben was never this frail. He was always healthy, full of life. This emaciated, shivering appearance truly worried me. "Good heavens, Ben!" I rushed to him. "What's wrong with you? You need to take a hot shower immediately. You'll get sick." I reached out to touch his shoulder to lead him to the bathroom, but a sudden, piercing, cold sensation enveloped me, chilling me to the bone. It wasn't the cold of rainwater or a draft. It was a strange, eerie cold, like touching a block of ice. I recoiled my hand. Ben still stood there, his vacant eyes staring straight at me. He didn't move, just shivered, water dripping from him onto the floor. "Go take a shower, Ben," I repeated, my voice slightly hurried. "I'll make you a hot cup of coffee." I turned my back, hurrying towards the kitchen, my heart filled with worry. In my mind, I was already planning for Ben to take cold medicine and rest all day tomorrow. Just then, my phone vibrated violently on the coffee table. The ringtone blared, shattering the silence of the room and also breaking the strange cold feeling I had just experienced. I glanced at the screen. It was an unknown number. Who would call at this hour in such a heavy rain? I picked up. "Hello, who is this?" I said, trying to stay calm. On the other end was a man's hoarse voice, full of gravity and regret. "Is this Alex Smith? This is the Savannah Police Department. We regret to inform you that your friend, Benjamin Carter, has been involved in an unfortunate accident." My entire body went rigid. I felt like a bucket of ice water had been poured over me. "Accident?" I stammered, my eyes still fixed on Ben, who was standing in the middle of the living room, still soaked, still shivering. The police officer's voice was heavy. "Approximately 15 minutes ago, Mr. Carter's car went off the Talmadge Memorial Bridge into the Savannah River. We have recovered the vehicle, but we are afraid that he unfortunately drowned." The phone slipped from my hand, clattering to the wooden floor. The police officer's call-ending tone still echoed in my ears, along with the rain lashing against the window. I looked up at Ben. He was still standing there, still soaked, still shivering. His eyes stared straight at me, still vacant and hollow, showing no recognition or emotion about what I had just heard. I'm so cold, Alex," Ben repeated, his voice hoarse, weak, like a broken machine, just repeating that one phrase. And as Ben spoke, a dark, icy puddle slowly spread beneath his feet, soaking into the wooden floor. The brackish smell of river water, of mud, and something decaying, utterly deathly, wafted straight into my nostrils. The entire room suddenly became bone-chillingly cold. That cold wasn't the cold of a rainy night. It was the cold of death. I backed away further and further until my back hit the cold wall. I couldn't utter a word. I stared at Ben, who stood there, still soaked, still shivering, his eyes still vacant, and still repeating the single phrase, I'm so cold, Alex." I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain what I had just seen. My best friend, who had just returned from a terrible accident, who had drowned in the Savannah River, was standing right in front of me, completely unaware that he was no longer alive. In the pouring rain in the dark apartment, I had seen something that shouldn't exist. I don't know how long I stood there, my body frozen with fear, until Ben subtly moved. He slowly turned his back and walked away. The footsteps were still the splish-splash of wetness, but this time they headed towards the bathroom. I watched Ben, my eyes unable to tear away from his form. He walked into the bathroom, and I heard the bathroom door gently click shut. Immediately after, a soaked, blurry shadow appeared clearly on the shower curtain, as if Ben had indeed stepped inside and was standing under the shower. At this moment, a crazy thought flashed through my mind. It can't be real, I told myself. It must be a prank or some new scam call. Ben can't be dead. Deep down, I still clung to the belief in what science and reason dictated. I hastily bent down to pick up the phone lying on the floor. My hands trembled as I dialed 911. The waiting tone rang out, each second feeling like a century. I stared intently at Ben's shadow cast on the shower curtain, trying to convince myself that it was just Ben taking a shower, nothing out of the ordinary. 911, what's your emergency? A female voice answered on the other end, her tone professional but somewhat weary from the stormy night. Yes, I want to confirm some information about a car accident near the Talmadge Memorial Bridge involving Benjamin Carter, I said with difficulty, each word seemingly stuck in my throat. I tried to keep my voice calm, but my heart was pounding like it wanted to burst out of my chest. There was a brief silence. Then the voice spoke again, this time with more gravity. Mr. Smith, we regret to confirm that the information is accurate. Mr. Carter's vehicle went into the Savannah River a short while ago. We have recovered the car, and we are currently searching for the victim's body. My whole world collapsed. Not a prank, not a scam. Ben was dead. The officer added a few more details about the scene, about the search efforts, but I no longer heard clearly. All sounds seemed muffled, leaving only a ringing in my ears. I hung up the phone, letting it fall to the floor again. My eyes were still fixed on the shower curtain. Ben's shadow was still there, still soaked, still motionless, as if submerged in invisible water. A bone-chilling cold again filled the room, carrying the brackish smell of river water and mud. An intense fear suffocated me. But at that very moment, another feeling surged, a compulsion. I had to look. I had to know. Whatever it was, I couldn't continue living in this uncertainty. I mustered all the courage I had left, taking heavy steps towards the bathroom. My hand reached out, trembling, grasping the edge of the curtain. I took a deep breath, then yanked it hard. Whoosh! The curtain was pulled aside with a jarring sound. The bathroom was completely empty. The faucet wasn't on. The floor was dry, not a single drop of water, no soaked shadow, no Ben. The bathroom was clean, eerily bright in the faint light of dawn, as if everything I had just seen, just heard, was merely an illusion of a mind trying to deceive itself. Just Alex's imagination, but the brackish smell of river water and mud still lingered in the air, and the chilling cold of death was still there, clinging to me. I stepped back, hitting the doorframe. I clutched my head, trying to shake off the image of a soaked, pale Ben and the whispered words, I'm so cold, Alex. Was I going insane? Or did this world truly hold things beyond human understanding? I rushed out of the apartment, down the stairs, and into the still gloomy Savannah morning. The rain had completely stopped, but dark clouds still blanketed the sky, like a veil concealing the horrific truth. I got into my old car, my hands trembling as I turned the key. Without a moment's hesitation, I drove straight to the site of Ben's accident, the Talmadge Memorial Bridge. When I arrived, the police and rescue teams were still working. Lights flashed, ambulances parked along the riverbank. The area had been cordoned off. I stepped out of the car, feeling my body heavy, each step threatening to collapse. The Savannah River flowed swiftly beneath the bridge, its waters still murky and cold, carrying an eeriness I had never perceived before. I saw Ben's car already pulled ashore. It was crushed, completely mangled, looking like nothing more than a heap of scrap metal. I stood there, looking at the remains of the car Ben had once loved so much, feeling a profound, bone-deep pain. And then, I saw them. Police officers standing around a blue tarp laid on the damp ground near the car. A few paramedics were leaning over, their faces grim. I knew what lay beneath that tarp. I couldn't hold back any longer. Tears streamed down my face. I ran towards them, ignoring an officer's attempt to stop me, my voice cracking with sobs. "Ben!" I screamed, my voice breaking. "Let me see Ben!" The officer looked at me with pity, then nodded slightly, signaling his colleagues to lift the tarp. And I saw Ben. Lying there on the cold ground was the lifeless body of my best friend. His face was pale blue, his eyes closed, and he wore a terrifyingly peaceful expression. No more shivering, no more cold, no more whispered, "I'm so cold," only the stillness of death. Real death. All the fear of ghosts, of illusions, of the supernatural in my apartment completely vanished. In its place was an overwhelming grief, an irreplaceable loss. Ben was truly gone. He was no longer here. Whatever the soaked, shivering image of him that appeared before me last night was, a wandering spirit or just the madness of my own mind, it no longer mattered. What mattered was that Ben, my closest friend, had passed away forever. I collapsed to my knees beside Ben, ignoring those around me, ignoring their curious stares. I touched his hand, ice cold. Colder than the cold I had felt from his spectral form last night. It was the true cold of death. I stayed there until they took Ben away. I watched the Savannah River swirl, and then I understood. Ben had been swallowed by the icy water. He had been in the water alone in the stormy night, and perhaps in those final moments, the only thing he yearned for was to come home, to warmth, to me. When I returned to the apartment, everything seemed to have changed. The living room was no longer frightening, but only empty and silent, filled with infinite sadness. Fear had given way to deep sorrow. I stared at the dried watermarks on the wooden floor where Ben had stood. Now they were no longer the traces of a ghost, but the last memory, the last image of my best friend. I realized perhaps Ben still didn't know he was gone. Perhaps his spirit was still lost, still trying to find its way home, still thinking he was simply cold. That night he didn't appear to scare me, but to seek help, to seek warmth, to seek comfort from his best friend. The days that followed passed in profound sadness. Ben's funeral took place under a gray Savannah sky. I stood among the mourners carrying the secret of my last encounter with Ben. I still lived in that apartment. The living room no longer inspired dread, but was simply filled with emptiness and memories. I no longer felt fear, but rather a quiet, lingering presence of Ben. One night, I dreamt of Ben. In the dream, he was no longer soaked or pale. He wore his favorite clothes, standing in a vibrant field of flowers under the sun, smiling at me. His smile was radiant and peaceful.